The house learned the difference between day and night long before anyone noticed. During the day, it behaved the way houses are expected to behave. Floors creaked under weight, pipes clicked when hot water moved through them. Sunlight slid across the walls and rested there quietly, never lingering too long. But at night, the house followed a different set of rules. The quiet arrived first, not silence. Silence implies rest. This was something heavier, a pause that felt intentional, like a held breath that never quite released. The kind of quiet that made small sounds feel intrusive, even when none came. The bedroom sat at the back of the house, far from the street. It was the darkest room, the least disturbed by passing cars or distant voices. Its single window faced a thin row of trees that never seemed to sway, even when the rest of the neighborhood stirred. The bed was placed against the wall. That detail mattered more than it should have. At first, sleep came easily. The darkness felt thick and comforting, like a blanket pulled up just high enough. The house seemed to encourage rest, wrapping itself around the room in a way that felt protective. But after a few nights, something felt wrong. The quiet didn't deepen as sleep arrived. It stayed alert. The air felt too still, like the moment just before a sound that never followed. Even breathing felt louder than it should have been. Sometimes, just before drifting off, there was the sense of being noticed. Not watched, not by eyes, but acknowledged. As if the room was aware of every movement, every breath. Nothing happened. That was the strangest part. No footsteps, no voices, no sounds to explain away. Just the quiet, and the growing feeling that the room remained awake long after its occupant did. The change came slowly. It began as warmth, not the kind that spreads evenly through a room, but a localized warmth along the wall behind the bed. Subtle at first, easy to ignore. Easy to, like the lingering heat left behind after sunlight fades, except the warmth appeared only at night. The wall felt closer then, not visibly different, not cracked or bowed. Just present in a way it hadn't been before, as if something rested against it from the other side. The breathing followed. It didn't announce itself. It never does. At first it was barely audible, a suggestion of sound rather than a sound itself. Slow, measured, careful, breathing, not rushed, not strained. The kind of breathing used by someone trying not to be heard. It came from directly behind the wall, right where the headboard met the plaster. The moment there was movement in the bed, the sound stopped. That became the first rule the house taught. Movement meant silence. Stillness invited sound. The listener learned quickly. Breathing became shallow. Movements became careful. Nights stretched longer, filled with listening instead of sleep. The body learned how to stay perfectly still, how to exist without disturbing the room. The breathing returned every night after midnight, never earlier, never later. Always patient. Sometimes it matched the rhythm of sleep perfectly. In and out, slow and deep. Other times it lagged just slightly behind, creating an uncomfortable awareness of two separate bodies sharing the same space. Those were the worst nights. The listener learned not to breathe too deeply, learned not to match it. During the day, everything returned to normal. The wall was solid and cool. The room felt ordinary again. No marks, no cracks, no signs that anything had pressed against it. But the nights remembered, and so did the house. Listening changes things. The more attention the breathing received, the more confident it became. Not louder, not faster, just closer. As if the sound no longer felt the need to hide. The wall felt warmer now, even during the day. The room held onto night air longer than it should have, lingering in shadows and corners long after morning arrived. Sometimes when standing near the bed, there was the faint impression of pressure against the wall. Not enough to leave marks, just enough to be felt. The house was learning. Houses do that. They memorize routines. They learn schedules. They notice patterns. When lights go out, when doors close, when sleep comes easily and when it doesn't. The house learned when resistance faded. The breathing no longer stopped immediately when the listener shifted. Sometimes it lingered for a moment longer, like it was deciding whether to continue. It always did. Names carry weight. They settle into spaces. They leave impressions. That's why the house waited. The first whisper came just after 2 a.m. during the quietest stretch of night, when even distant sounds had faded away. It wasn't loud, it wasn't sharp. It slipped through the wall like it belonged there, soft, certain. The name was spoken once, perfectly. The breathing stopped immediately afterward. The silence that followed felt complete, like something had been finished, like a thought that had reached its end. Sleep did not return that night. The listener lay awake, heart slow but heavy, staring into the dark. There had been no mistake. The name had been spoken clearly, familiar, as if it had been practiced. The next morning, the wall bore faint impressions, pressure marks only visible in the right light, not random, purposeful, aligned with where someone might stand. Facing the bed, the house remained quiet after that. It didn't repeat the name right away. It didn't need to. Houses are patient. They understand timing. Sleep became lighter in the nights that followed. Rest came in fragments, hovering between waking and dreaming. The house seemed to prefer that state. The breathing returned nightly, closer to the surface of the wall than before. The whisper didn't come every night. It didn't need to. The house already knew the name. It was learning something else when it was allowed. The breathing now arrived during that fragile moment between consciousness and sleep, the moment when thoughts slow, when awareness softens, when resistance fades without notice. The wall felt thin then, almost permeable. The listener learned not to open their eyes. The whisper came again, closer this time, not through the wall, beside it. The name was spoken gently, followed by a pause that felt expectant. The breathing resumed afterward, deeper now, more assured. The house had learned enough. The final night arrived quietly. The silence came early, earlier than usual. No warmth, no breathing. The wall felt normal again. Relief settled in, heavy and welcome. Sleep began to arrive. Then the floor creaked. Once, not outside the room, inside it. The sound was soft, careful, as if weight had been placed deliberately. The whisper came from beside the bed this time, low, familiar, like it had always belonged there. The name was spoken again, and then something new followed, a breath, not behind the wall, in the room. It was warm, close, slow. Morning arrived gently. The room looked unchanged. The bed was untouched. The wall stood firm. No marks, no cracks, no signs of intrusion. But the house felt different, complete, as if something that had waited a very long time had finally rested. The house sleeps now. That's the strangest part. No more breathing, no more whispers, no more warmth along the wall. Just quiet, deep, unmoving, restful. But sometimes, very late at night, when the room goes still and the air thickens in familiar ways, it feels like the house is dreaming, and it knows exactly who helped it fall asleep. Sleep well, the house already is.